Hi. All right. So we're going to get started. Just want to say hi. Thanks for being with us today for Bilingual Ottawa's first of four webinars. So today we're presenting the winning strategies developing a project idea. We're really going to be discussing the steps to properly develop a project idea. We'll be sharing some strategies and some elements that are essential to the development of grant-funded projects. So we're going to start off right away with who am I? Who's this guy talking to you on screen? So my name is Patrick Ferrand. I'm the Bilingual Ottawa Program Manager at the moment. So I work for l'ACFA Ottawa, which now hosts the Bilingual Ottawa program through ACFA Ottawa. So that's me. So you'll see that I have my email address there as well as my phone number. So if ever you guys have any questions after today's webinar, you have any questions about our funding program, about what ACFO does, any other questions, we'll be there to help. So I'll add those in the chat for you guys. So if ever you guys have any questions afterwards, feel free to contact me. I'm there for you. So we'll move forward. I'll talk quickly about what the Bilingual Ottawa program is. Since I have you here, I'm going to do my spiel for 2 minutes. It won't be very long, and then we'll get into the real heavy of the stuff. So what is Bilingual Ottawa program? We're a micro grant funding program that helps promote Francophonie and bilingual character in Ottawa. So we help to promote in concrete projects by investing for projects that are done for and by the community. So we aim to have an increased bilingualism across Ottawa, better cohesion between Francophone, FNME, and Anglophone communities in Ottawa. We're looking for a more active, vibrant, inclusive, and dynamic community, an increase in bilingual services in Ottawa, as well as an increased dialogue and collaboration amongst various key players in the area. So that's mainly what we're going for with our micro grant funding program. For some of you who know, we're currently in the midst of the third round of projects going on right now. Just to throw it out there, we will be having another round in the new year. It's not officially announced yet. The information will be released in January, but there is another round of funding coming in 2022. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. So just a few key statistics to let you know what our program has done recently. So in 2021, we managed to give out $485,000 in grants in the Ottawa area, and we'll be doing that same amount again in 2022. We managed to reach 39% of Ottawa's population from 2019 to 2021 indirectly. So what that means is through social media posts, through bilingual signage, through new programs or activities where maybe some family members participated and some others didn't. So we really managed to reach a pretty big slice of Ottawa's population in the last 2 years, and we're pretty happy with that. So we're going to look at keep bringing up that number. Considering Ottawa's population now over 1 million, we're happy with that percentage. So now we're in our third round right now. So between July 2021 and February 2022, we have 800 new activities going on. So that's a huge amount of new things going on in the community. So keep an eye open for this Bilingual Ottawa logo on some posters, because it's been everywhere recently. So keep your eyes open and feel free to participate in those. And also, we managed to help create 413 new partnerships in the last year. So we're really happy with those numbers, and we're going to keep looking at improving that impact. So quick few explanations for this webinar. Zoom is great. We've all used it quite a bit in the last year, I have no doubt. So I'll just go over this really quickly, just to let you guys know. Only the people who have signed up have received the link are the people who have access to this webinar right now. Only me, the host, will have the right to talk and show their screen. So no worries about that. Also, just to let you know, this webinar is recorded and will be shared online afterwards on YouTube. So if ever you guys have to take a quick bathroom break or grab a glass of water, you can always come back and check the video afterwards. It's not a problem. However, the chat is open, and so is the Q&A. So feel free to write in there, send some resources. I also have my colleague with me today, Turki, who will be assisting us as we go along. So if ever there's some questions that I might have missed, he'll try and bring me back on track for those. So again, feel free to use the Q&A section or the chat section. And speaking of which, I'll invite you right now to write into the chat, please. So I'll ask you to write your name, your ward or your neighborhood, your title or occupation, and your organization or business name in the chat. Seeing as we haven't had the chance to see each other as much in the last year, I think it's a little opportunity to share our names and to get some communication going. So feel free to throw that in the chat if you're comfortable. And not seeing anything yet, but I'll keep an eye open. So again, keep an eye open on the Q&A in the chat. We'll move forward for now. Hi, Michelle, nice to see you. And Catherine, perfect. Cool, so I'll just go over the agenda quickly. So we've already discussed the Bilingual Auto program. I did my little spiel. Now, a few key points for Zoom and agenda. We're going over that. The rest of the stuff we'll be discussing today is the first steps of your project, and then we'll be choosing your target audience and your intention. We'll discuss how to aim for quality impact. We'll be discussing about developing your concept. Then we'll be going into partnerships and participation for your activities. We'll touch on funding just a little bit, but not too much because that's the next webinar. And then we'll have a little period for the unanswered questions. And then we'll discuss the upcoming webinars. So that's going to be pretty much it for today. We'll be trying getting this done within 30 to 40 minutes, so it shouldn't be too long. We'll try and keep it clear and concise. And we're here not for a long time, but for a good time. So we'll see what we can do with this. So we'll start off right away. If there's any questions, not seeing any, but I'm seeing the chat's gotten a little bit more active, so that's fun. Hi to Sebastien, hi to Sydney, salut Treva. So again, Q&A is open if ever there's more questions that pop up as we go along. So first steps of your project. A project can seem super overwhelming when we start. So I've got a quick poll question, and it's, what's your first step when you develop a project? So is it that you create a budget? Do you try and find funding right away? Do you try and find partners, create partnerships? Maybe you aim for a certain target audience, or you have an intention. My personal favorite is making a coffee right off the bat to make sure I have that energy going. So that poll has been launched. Feel free to put your answer in there and we'll see what comes up. Again, well, not again, but there is no wrong answers. This is really just, I'm going to throw out a few different keys, a few suggestions and elements in a certain order that I suggest. But again, there's no right answer here. So it all comes down to what you already have, what information you already have, and we're going to try and piece all those pieces together. All right, so we already have quite a variety of answers, very interesting. So finding funding, finding partners, target audience, intention, and we do have a coffee maker in the group. That is fun. I like that. So I'll end and share those results with you for those who are interested. But yeah, the first steps can seem a little simple, and that's just it. It's nothing to really crack your head open about. We're going to try and really work through the simple aspects of developing your project, making sure you have the things in order so that when you go forward to finding your funding, you're ready to go and you're not really still in your questioning stage. So we'll go forward from here with choosing your target audience. So knowing your target audience will help you deduce quite a bit of information for the rest of your project. Just to clarify, your target audience is a group of people to whom you are offering your activity or service. So your target audience can be a population of a geographic area, for example, population of Ottawa. We can aim for maybe a certain age group. We can aim for a certain community group. We can have our target audience, can be people who have a certain type of employment. So it could be health workers, it could be firemen, whoever we have as our target audience. It could also be a type of employment. Could also be based on gender. So in this case, it'd be the behavioral, cultural, or psychological traits typically associated with one's sex. However, this is in constant evolution, so it is important to keep an eye on it and see what your funders are actually suggesting your target audience be divided as. We can also have a target audience, could be a minority group. It can also be a marginalized group. And knowing your target audience will then help you determine a few key bits of information. So your first thing it'll help you is your approach, is how are you going to approach that population? Obviously, we're not going to approach all populations the same way. So that's going to help you with that. Also help you to develop a personalized impact for your target audience. So having that personalized impact can be really important long-term throughout your project. The visual style of your project will also be determined with this. For example, if you're doing a project in an old age home, I highly doubt that your visual style would be like graffiti style, hip hop style. So we try and have a visual style that speaks to our target audience. So knowing your target audience is already going to help you slim down the possibilities of options that you're going to be looking at. And then obviously it's going to also determine the language to use. And it could be as much a professional versus a slang type language, as well as the specific language you will be using. Is your activity in French? Is it in English? Is it bilingual? Is it trilingual? So again, knowing your target audience is going to help you determine a whole slew of things right before you even start. Haven't seen any questions yet, so I'll keep moving for the intention. So knowing and keeping your intention while you develop your project will help you to keep its pertinence throughout the whole process. So some possible intentions of your project could be to improve people's lives. It could be to give financial support to a certain group. It could be to promote a language or a culture. We could help to distribute information or to raise awareness to a certain situation. So these are all possible and very valid intentions for a new project, for a project that you could be putting on. And then after your intention, you're also looking at your impact. And we're going to talk about quality impact for a moment here. And how can you measure if you have a good impact? So we'll start with, what are key indicators? How can you measure your impact? So the first one would really be your number of participants. How many people are coming to your activities, participating in your project? You can discuss the number of partnerships created. That's always very important for your impact. Has there been any are you creating, any visible changes in your community? Is there maybe a new mural, or are you helping to build a new food bank maybe? So what is a visible change in your community that you are going to be creating? Also, are there any economic benefits to your project? Some long-lasting economic benefits that your project is bringing into the community. Also, interesting note, sometimes grant funders will be looking at the number of training sessions that you might be offering, as well as the number of activities you could be offering. And another great tool is an opinion survey, which I will be sending one after this, just to let you know. But opinion surveys are great to have a direct, right away feedback from your participants if the information was pertinent, if it was fun, if it was interesting for them, if it was impactful. So that opinion survey, we often tend to forget about it because it's at the end, but it can be super useful, especially if it's something that we're doing on a regular basis. Careful, however, because the impact indicators can depend on your funding's requirements. So it's always a good idea, once you have in your mind how you're going to be measuring your impact, it's a good idea to go check that with your grant agreement and make sure that everything that's stipulated in your grant agreement is also indicated in how you're planning to quantify your impact. So now I'm going to come back to the aspect of quality impact a little bit. And I'm going to try and explain this in a way that hopefully isn't too vague. So I'll start with a term called surface impact. So we're talking about things that have little durability, very short term, aren't very personalized in the way that they're presented. First is things that could have a deep impact. So things that could bring change, could have a long-term impact for someone. We could be talking about sharing of knowledge between generations. So something that has a lot more concrete, deep, long-lasting impact. So I'm going to show you a little graph here I've tried to create. So on the upper left, we'll see surface impact, top right, deep impact, and then far left, top, few people reached, and then bottom left, many people reached. And what I'm trying to show here is that when we're determining the impact that our project will have, we're really aiming for this bottom right green square. So we're looking for a project that has very deep concrete impact and that reaches a lot of people. Now, realistically, not all projects can reach this green square. There's some projects, for whatever the reason, because of the nature of the project, they will never get past this yellow area, and that's fine. and we have a need for those projects as well. So I guess the main point to come out of this is stay away from the red, aim for the green, but the yellow is okay. So if you have a project that you're not reaching a lot of people, but you have a really deep, concrete, long-term impact, you'd still be in this yellow, but it's a great concept for a project. And same thing, vice versa. If you have, it's a very surface impact, but you're reaching a huge amount of people, a large amount of people, it can also be very interesting for your funders. So you're aiming for this green, yellow is realistic, and red is what we're trying to avoid. So again, we're aiming for quality impact, something that brings deep, concrete change to a lot of people. So I hope this gives a little bit of an insight on that. Again, I'm open to answer any questions in regards to this, if ever there are some. I'll move forward for now, not seeing any. So again, I'll give a few moments for some questions. Everything looks good. So we're developing our projects. The first steps are done. We've got a bit of info. Now what do we do? So we have our who with our our target audience, sorry. We have our what with our intention. We have our why with our impact, and those are interchangeable a bit, but our who, what, why has been answered. Now we're going to be looking at the when, the where, and the how. So what's the best time of year for my project? When should I be doing this thing? So few first things to consider when we're deciding on a date is, does the date speak to my target audience? For example, if I'm doing an activity for 14 to 16-year-olds and I'm doing it in the second week of September during the school year, during the day, clearly won't speak to my target audience. They'll be really busy, unless maybe we're doing it during the March break, we're doing it during the summertime. So make sure that right off the bat, we already have our target audience. Let's make sure that the time we choose corresponds to when they're available. Also, is there another large event going on at the same time in our community for that same group, for example? So let's say we're trying to do an activity for the Franco-Ontarian community on September 25th. For those who don't know, that's the day that we celebrate the Franco-Ontarian flag. So let's say we're a French organization, we're trying to do something on that date. Well, it's a good thing to consider, is there another organization doing an activity that same day? Will we be splitting up our potential target audience with them? Or should we be partnering with them so that we can have a larger impact? So those are all questions to consider once you realize that there is another event going on at the same time. And sometimes it's best to just say, you know what, we're going to change our date. Sometimes that's just the reality of things. So keep in mind what others are doing as well. And I mean, if you're partners with a lot of different organizations, never hurts to send out an email and say, hey, we're thinking of planning something on this date. Do you have any objections? So I know we've done that in the past when we have similar partners that work in the same area, we could say. It doesn't hurt to check in with our friends. Also, another thing to note is how much preparation time do I need? If our project, oh, sorry, a bit too far there. If our project, we have a start date and an end date to our project agreement, we want to make sure that we have considered preparation time for our project in there, and that we don't just show up and realize, oh, darn, we only have a week to hire 4 new staff members. So considering that preparation time is really important when we're planning when we're going to be doing our project. Also, is there a holiday or a celebration on or near that date? I can't say how many times I've participated in projects where we've gotten closer to the project and you realize, oh, that's a stat holiday, or so-and-so's on holiday that week or the week before. How are we going to get X thing prepared? So it's always good to keep in mind if there's a holiday, a celebration, if someone's taking holidays, keep those calendars public and open throughout your team. It's very important. Also, is your funding linked to a certain timeline? So kind of like we mentioned earlier, do you have a certain deadline with your grant agreement that you have to finish all your spending by? So that would be important to keep in mind when you're developing your calendar for the year. Now, we're going to jump into partnerships quickly. So having a strong partnership can make a huge difference for your project. Do you have the necessary team? We're about to see. So why do I need partnerships? Why would I even consider that? Well, what would be their role? that's the first question to ask yourself. They could be to solidify your funding or grant application. I can tell you honestly, as someone who reviews a lot of grant submissions, having a project that has partnerships indicated and that are pertinent will definitely help your project. When we receive applications that don't have partnerships, there's always a little bit of a questioning saying, okay, well, is it because they didn't take the time to go contact the other people that do similar work in the area? Did they forget? Are they too busy? Is there a reason that the partnerships, the partners don't talk to them? So if you can have a few partnerships in your grant proposals, in your project development, that's very important, and it's going to bring you a lot farther in your impact, because it's also going to help you reach a larger target audience throughout it all. With your communications, with your promotions, they can help you share that. You're going to have double the impact. And it's also going to add expertise and knowledge to your project. So something that I like to consider when I'm developing a project is there someone out there that knows more than I do on a certain topic? And of course, there always is. I mean, that's the nature of the world that we live in. But is there someone that I can contact who'd be willing to help me develop that expertise and to help bring their knowledge to our team for this project? So it will obviously help you increase your impact throughout all of that. So after that, you kind of have the question, do I already have partnerships that would be pertinent to my project? Am I already partnered with someone that would be perfect for this project? If not, well, is there possible partnerships in my community that would suit my project? If I'm looking at doing something with a certain target audience, I would probably try and go and find an organization that already works with that target audience if I don't. So that's your first two steps in regards to that. And then you want to know what you'll be asking of your partners. You don't want to show up and just say, hey, I want a partnership. What can we do? It's good to show up with the intention of what you're asking of them. It could be sharing of a space. It could be sharing of expertise. It could be sharing of resources. It could be to help with the promotion. But you want to make sure that when you arrive to approach a potential partner, you know what you're going to be asking of them right away. Now we'll be moving forward to participation in our activities. So, I mean, we're still in the planning, we're still in the organization, but we want to consider right away, how do we make sure people show up and they're there and they want to be there? So how can I make sure that that happens? Well, one great first step is required registration and timely reminders. It could be with Eventbrite or MailChimp through your emails, or sending a virtual calendar reminder that they can add to their agenda. It's all potential options to help people remember that there's an activity going on. I really like Eventbrite for the reason that when there is an activity, you can set up and they can do automatic reminders, 3 days before, 24 hours before, 5 minutes before. And so you know that if you have a lot of other things to prepare to get ready, well, those automatic reminders are done and they're out of your brain. So that's what I like to use Eventbrite for. However, there's a lot of limitations for if you have a reoccurring event. So that's why you might notice that today the registrations were through Google Forms. So again, you just find a way to have people register to feel like they need to attend, and that has a big impact on your participation. Again, the virtual calendar reminder is awesome if you can make that happen in time. Also, create a feeling of belonging to the project. So if you have a reoccurring project that has multiple stages, you want people that show up to the first ones feel like they need to be to the next ones, and you want the people that weren't there to feel like they missed something. That can be done and achieved either through your promotion, through your publications, through word of mouth, or it can also be done through promotional items. For example, if you have a festival that goes on in an annual fashion every year around the same time, well, something that I've noticed that's worked a lot is t-shirts. It'd be sold at reduced price or given out, but I know people who will go to the same activity year after year just to get that t-shirt and to add it to their collection. So sometimes it can be really simple. It can be the 2011 pen or the 2010 pen or something like that, but creating a sense of belonging and that reminder of, oh yeah, I was there and that was cool and I want to do it again. So it's to keep that intention when we're planning our project, if we can. Another way to assure participation can be through rewards or draws. It can be participation rewards, some gift cards given out if people have offered up a lot of time to a certain activity or project. And by aiming for quality impact, as we were talking about earlier, we can make sure that the information that we're showing, that the activity that we're putting on is of quality and pertinence for the participants. So if it's very pertinent and people think that it's useful for them, they will keep coming. If they think that it's useless and you were just wasting their time, good luck getting them to come back again. So try and make sure that it's impactful and pertinent for your target audience. And lastly, but definitely not least, ease of access. So this could be easily accessible location. It could be, is the information easily accessible? And is the activity easy to understand? So these are 3 key points that can make or break your project. So make sure it's easy to get to, easy to find, and easy to understand. That is really, really, really important when we're trying to put on a public event. Any questions? I see a question from Treva in the chat asking for some help with the virtual calendar reminders. Yeah, that's a very good point. Right now, off the top of my mind, I do not have any applications that I could suggest, but I'll definitely look into that because I think that it would be useful to have accessible. And we're also looking at developing a resource page on the Bilingual Ottawa website. So that would be a great place for us to add that. But Treva, I'll do a follow-up with you afterwards if you want to discuss that further. All right. So now we're going to talk about development. So we've got our who, we've got our what, we've got our why, we've got our when, kind of have a where, it's going to come with time, and we have a how. So now that we have a vision for our project, what's the next step? Where are we going next? Feel free to put your answer in the chat if you have an idea. But again, so we have our who with our target audience. We have our what with our intention, or sorry, our what with our impact, our why with our intention, our when with our calendar, our where kind of comes with everything else, and our how with our partnerships and our participants. So that's kind of where we're getting those answers from. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but that's okay. We'll move forward for now. So the next really important step is presenting your project. So, you have an idea in your head. Now, can you explain it to others? And honestly, a clear explanation of your project can make all the difference in multiple different stages. So your first question to answer is, can I explain my project in a few key sentences? You should be able to write out what your project is in 2 sentences, and it should be clear and concise. If it takes you 500 words to explain your project, it might be a bit too complex or a bit too many integrated aspects. So try and find a way to clearly and concisely explain your project in about 2 sentences. Then the next step is really, is my project clear for someone who's not familiar with it? A great tip that I got from my my ED just before she left was, if you have an intern who isn't very related to your project, have them read your grant application, your grant submission, and see what they retain from it. Get them to explain back to you what they thought the project was, and you'll have a very clear idea very quickly if your explanation makes sense. If they come back and they're a little bit in left field, well, you know that your explanations and your clarifications have some work to be done. And then the next question is, who's my team? Do I have partners? Do I have co-workers? Will I need a consultant to put on my project? So all things to consider when we're presenting our project to those people. And what am I missing to start my project? So sometimes it's human resources, sometimes it's financial resources, sometimes it can be equipment. So it's just good to have an overview at this point. What am I missing? Where am I at? I have a pretty good idea of what's going on, but let's make sure we know where those holes are so we can go fill them. And now we're going to talk about funding because the concept is created. Now we talk cash. We're going to be very brief on this because this is going to be the main stuff of the next webinar. But we're just going to touch it quickly to wrap it up today quickly. So the next step would be to create a budget for your project. You try and be as realistic as possible, and you try to predict the surprise costs. Obviously, as much as possible, because again, there's surprise costs. So you do what you can, but you try and keep them in mind that you never know what's going to happen. And then the next little tip that I would have is find funding that fits with your project idea. Don't necessarily try and find, don't mold or change your project to fit a funding requirement, because you'll lose pertinence and you'll lose intention and vision of your project. So again, just try and make sure that you have your project idea, you know what you want to do, find funding that fits into your criteria, and don't change your project to fit the funding. It's like a golden rule in grant writing I've discovered, and it's really useful. And if you can have a few project ideas always on the back burner, a few ideas developing, well, when you see those funding opportunities come up, you'll be able to say, oh yeah, that works perfectly for that, that works for that. So yeah, just try and make sure that your funding fits your projects and not that your projects fit the funding. So again, I'll see if we have any questions. I haven't seen anything come up. So I'm going to assume that the information is relatively clear. Again, I'll reshare my email and my phone number in the chat here. So if ever anyone wants to get a hold of me afterwards, that's how you can do it. I'll just move forward since we're really at the last slide here. So I just want to do a quick reminder. January 17th is when the next webinar will be happening. We'll be talking about developing a budget and a financial calendar. So that's really going to be the next one coming up. I've seen some of you have already registered, so that's great. If not, registration will stay open until then. That is not an issue. So again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions, but that wraps up what I had to show today. So thank you very much for being with us, and I really appreciate your presence, your participation, and I hope all goes well. So I'll be sticking around in the session for another few minutes. If you have questions, feel free to type them out. I'll be here, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.